One thing you can regularly expect to do when you're writing an INF file is add entries for manipulating the registry in Windows, possibly the worst component of modern Windows, but this is how we do it. And I assume you have some familiarity with the Windows registry. You've got some of these root keys right here, and then underneath there's some more keys. They've got a bunch of different values. They could be binary or strings, those sorts of things. But we're gonna go ahead and create one of our own keys, and to do that we need to know how to use a new directive called AddReg, and it's defined under here just like copy files. So we'll point to a new section called DoReg, and we're gonna place our add registry section underneath here, DoReg, and then if we take a look in the Windows 95 resource kit, it's under here. This is the syntax for adding a registry value, or even just a key if that's all you want to do. So I'm just gonna do this on my own, and to start we have to type in an abbreviation of one of these root keys. There's 5 different abbreviations you can use as far as I know. For H key current user you type in something like HKCU, or for something like H key local machine you type in HKLM. We're going to do HKCU in this case, and then what we want to be able to do is create a subkey, and this subkey is going to be called new key, and within that key we're also going to create another key called test. And underneath this key I want to give a name for a value, and for this one I'm going to say new value, and this part right here can either be empty to indicate a string, or you can set a flag of 1 to indicate that this is a binary value. We're gonna just create a string right now, and we're gonna say, what is this new value? What's a good one that I can just registry editor? Yeah, I can't come up with anything. So we're going to be mindful of what we see here and go ahead and install and refresh. We see we have a new key, and we can go ahead and take a look in the test key, and there we are. We have our new value, which is set to registry editor. So I want to add a few more values and another subkey. So let's point to the same key right here, and I can define the name of another value, or I can just set this default value for this key. That's something that comes in every key, and it doesn't necessarily have to be defined, but it's there. So we're going to leave this empty so that we tell the setup engine to write to the default value. And then I'm going to type in 1 to indicate that this is a binary value. And binary values in the registry are just a series of hex values. So we can do 0022446688 AA CC EE, something like that. What the binary values are going to be used for depends on the kinds of programs you're dealing with, but this isn't going to be used by anything. This is just for demonstration purposes. So let's go ahead and install that. And we see that we now have a binary value with the very same hexadecimal values we put in here. They're always separated by commas. It doesn't have to be in uppercase, of course, but I kind of just do it sometimes. Now, underneath this key, I want to create another key. I'll call it level 3. You don't actually have to create a value underneath this new key. You can get away with just naming the key and it should create it. And we see we got a plus symbol here, and there's our key, level 3. Now, if you want to be able to uninstall a component, you might also want to delete some registry values, and so there's a directive for that called DelReg equals goodbye reg is going to be the section we'll use for deleting registry values when we call commence deletion. So goodbye reg the syntax for DelReg entries is considerably simpler. All you really have to do is type in the registry root string and the subkey and optionally the name of the value. So let's go ahead and see if we can try to clean up all of these. Well, I'm only going to do some of them. You could just delete the entire new key if you really want to do that, but I want to only delete some of the values. So type in HKCU new key test, and our value that we're going to be deleting is new value, so we'll type the name of that in here. And let's go ahead and delete that. And it's gone. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back. And then I want to delete this key right here. So HKCU new key test level 3. So let's see if that gets rid of that key. Yep, that's gone too, and now we only have this binary value intact. Upon installing them, the key is restored and we got our value back. And of course, if we really want to, we can just forget about all of this and just delete the entire new key. And that is completely gone now. And now it's back. Now, often when you're dealing with registry keys, there's probably going to be many layers of different keys that you'll probably have to go through, which can make a key path like this incredibly long. So, for example, just look up the default sound that I have set under here, and it's set to Utopia default. But look at this key. It's H key current user app event schemes apps dot current. Now you can certainly go ahead and type this by hand. If you're dealing with long registry keys, you may want to surround them in quotes. So let me make this a little easier. App events schemes apps dot current, and then the value we're going to be wanting to edit is just the default value, so we'll leave that empty and indicate that this is a string, and we're going to set the new path name to the new sound that we want to replace this with. So knowing that this is Utopia default right now, we're going to actually go ahead and what I'm going to do is use a logical disk identifier value here, because you can do that. So I'm going to type in %10% to indicate that I want to expand the user's Windows directory. And now I'm going to point to media and then type in the file name that we want to replace this sound with, which is going to be the Microsoft sound.wav. And let's see what happens. It has expanded %10% into C Windows, and then pointing to our media directory and the Microsoft sound, and we should see this take effect. Now, of course, a sound as long as this is probably going to get very annoying if you're going to be dealing with default sound, which you're probably going to hear frequently in Windows. So we could perhaps just delete this value, although I don't think that would actually be, well, it just clears it, but you could do that. But you can also, in an uninstallation procedure, add registry values for in case you want to restore a particular value that was replaced during the installation process. So we'll go ahead and create this restore value section, and now, you just see that this is our installation, and then I'm going to delete everything, and then it restores our proper sound from the Utopia sound scheme. Now, this is pretty lengthy, being able to expand LDID values inside of your strings is a pretty convenient function, but wouldn't you like to do the same with a key as long as this? Well, turns out you can do that. There's another section which the setup engine has a reserved name for called strings. And this basically allows you to define commonly used strings so that you can reuse them a lot more easily and only have to change them down here. And to give you a better idea, we'll just say, we'll just call this string, we'll give this string the label current default sound. A bit lengthy and descriptive, but it should be very, very self-explanatory. Of course, I do want to get some of this out of here, but so this is where this is just the path to my key that I want to be modifying. App events, schemes, apps, default, current. So now what I can do here is essentially change this entire key to say %current default sound. And I can also do the exact same thing over here. Not only is this quite convenient, it's also very important because generally Windows 9X INF files are no larger than 60 kilobytes. So if your file gets too large, you want to have some way to be able to save on bytes, because you might be dealing with tons and tons of lines depending on the kind of thing you're trying to accomplish with your INF file. But in any case, just double check to make sure I did save, and we'll see what happened here. So this is restoring to Utopia default, and I'll go in and install again. And now I see that the Microsoft sound is now in its place. And then uninstall again, restored to Utopia default. We get the exact same effects as if we were to type the full key in this parameter every single time. Now there are a few instances where you cannot use a string to expand some short bit of text, and one particular example would be in a copy file section, so you can't just type in current default sound here. It's not valid. But in most cases, you certainly can use this string section to really just make your life a lot easier when it comes to editing these INF files, because, you know, especially with such a long key like this, there just might be a good chance that you've made a typo somewhere and you want to be able to update all of them at once if they're going to be pointing to the exact same location. So that's manipulating the registry with an INF file, and in the next segment I expect to cover manipulating INF files using an INF file. you know, such things like windows.ini and or win.ini and system.ini, for example. I'll actually use a smaller INI file to work with in the next segment, but this is where we're going to be headed next. So see you when that comes around.